subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to get all my latest writing tips and videos. And remember, be original. Be a writing original. What's up everybody, Adrian here, back with another video of every horror subgenre. This is part 8, and it's going to be the final video of the series. So I hope you enjoyed it so far. We're going to talk about action horror, Asian horror, clown horror, creepy dolls and toys, dark fantasy, erotic horror, ESP horror, found footage, mummies and golem horror, remakes, those things, and finally weird horror. So if you're a screenplay writer or you're writing a book and you need some ideas of horror subgenres to write about, or if you're not a writer and you're just a fan of horror and you want to learn about, some new subgenres you never heard before, well, I hope you, looked at all the other videos of the series, because it's going to culminate right now. So let's get started, guys. I'm so excited. So, right off the bat, action horror. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just mix action and horror. And really, like, all horror movies, like, have some sort of elements of action. But I guess we're going to be focused on horror movies that are just, like, predominantly the majority, like 99% action. So it's a subgenre combining the intrusion of an evil force, event, or personage of horror movies with the weapons fight and frantic chases of the action genre. So, like I said, all horror movies have those little elements, but some movies you could take a look at that are strictly pure action with a horror undertone is the Resident Evil movies, which kind of stink. Underworld movies, which kind of stink. But then you got Aliens, which is like, the first one was like a sci-fi horror. But then James Cameron, he took the horror or terror, because it's not really that bloody. So terror mixed with guns and marines and sci-fi weapons like that, like big action pieces. So, and then you got Predator, which is like an 80s action film predominantly sprinkled in with the Predator villain creature and sci-fi elements. And so these are some movies you should check out. But remember, there's every horror movie has elements of action. So there you go. So now, Asian horror films are films of horror, thrillers, and suspense films made in Asian countries, including Thailand, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, India, Indonesia, and the Philippines, that generally follow the conventions of Japanese horror or Korean horror. So those two, Japanese and Korean, are like the main exports of Asian horror films. So they're very dark, ghostly, bloody, gory, like visceral. So some movies to check out is The Audition, which kind of starts off slow, but when it picks up, oh my god. If you can stomach it, good luck. You got Dark Water, which was based on a true, very weird, disturbing, event about a girl and this water tank, and there's actual real footage of her, which is creepy within itself. Also, I saw The Devil, which is a guy trying to get his revenge on a serial killer that killed his family, I believe. Very gory, disturbing. And then you got The Grudge, or Junon, The Grudge. So there was a bunch of remakes. All these Asian horror films have remakes with contemporary, American spins on it. So check out whatever you'd prefer. So now let's talk about clown horror, which is again self-explanatory. The contemporary evil clown archetype developed in the 1980s, notably popularized by Stephen King's It. Everybody knows that. And perhaps influenced by John Wayne Gacy, a serial killer dubbed the killer clown in 1978. If you ever seen that photograph of him with the clown makeup on, and he would actually give like birthday parties dressed up as a clown with kids around. So that was messed up. So then you got like horror comedy with clowns, and so some other clown movies besides it to take a look at. There's tons of them out there. Basically the same premise, same story. But you could check out Clown, which is on Netflix. I saw it. To me, it wasn't that good because it had no story, or not enough story for me. But, check it out. Let me know what you think. You have a Rob Zombie's 31, which is about a bunch of like a gang of clowns with masks, and then like, I didn't quite see it. I saw like the trailer, so you go check it out. Let me know what you think. Especially since a couple years ago there was that true story on the news about a couple of people dressed up as clowns showing up on your porch, and they were like, the houses had cameras, had security cameras, and they were caught on tape. And then people started freaking out, and ever since then, more and more clown, films would come out. So let me know in the comments if you ever saw like one of those clown people with the masks come into your neighborhood or coming onto your porch. You also have like the comedic Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which is, yes, it's funny, but very disturbing. And then more recently, a couple years ago, Terrifier. Like an independent, like small budget film. I want to see it. I'm going to do a live stream reaction on it really soon. So stay tuned for that. But I heard it's one of the sickest, most disgusting movies ever. And the Art the Clown, who's on the cover, gives Pennywise, Stephen King's It, a run for his money. So check out these movies. So let's look at creepy dolls and toys subgenre. So in many horror films, toys such as dolls, teddy bears, and puzzle boxes are used as objects which the spirit/ghost use to scare people. Some examples would be Annabelle, the Crooked Man, musical box from The Conjuring 2, Billy, Chucky, Jigsaw. So some movies to take a look at is the classic Puppet Master, and even some of the sequels are okay, but it developed like a cult following. You have the ultimate killer doll I have to talk about, Child's Play, Chucky. You could also check out Dead Silence from the writer-producer of Saw. And also Saw has, the little doll in there, but he's not mainly doing the killings, not even a lot. And then you could check out a movie that is called Dolls. So there's even like a film, I think, like Puppets vs. Demonic Toys or something like that. So I get creeped out by dolls. It's very hard for me to watch these movies. I'm sure a lot of people have phobias of dolls. So, but definitely, if you can handle it, check out some of these killer doll and toy movies. So now we get to dark fantasy horror subgenre. So an overlapping subgenre, and its stories generally feature human evil and strife rather than supernatural monsters. A subgenre of fantasy, literally or literature, artistic and cinematic works that incorporate dark and frightening themes of fantasy. It also often combines fantasy with elements of horror, or has a gloomy, dark, or grim, dark atmosphere, or a sense of horror and dread. Some movies to take a look at is Legend by Ridley Scott with the young Tom Cruise. You got Hellraiser, which you're thinking like, wait a minute, isn't that like kind of like a slasher film? Not really. It has to do with interdimensional beings and mixed with a sci-fi punk theme, like a steampunk, but it's definitely fantasy. Also, Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro. Another film by him is Devil's Backbone. He's known for doing like dark fantasy or fantastical themed films, so definitely check these out. Now let's talk about erotic horror. Boom chicka bow wow. Okay, anyways. So basically erotic horror contains a strong sexual element, and this subgenre, the sex can be explicit, but it's often far from pleasurable. Now, a lot of horror films, especially slasher movies, because of the slasher rules, you have to have sex in it, and the virgin survives, and then people who have sex instantly get killed. But I guess we're gonna be talking about horror films that are strictly like nothing but sexual with a little bit of horror element in it. I guess I don't know, but some films I could think of that weren't like straight up like parodies or porno films of horror movies and stuff like that. It's Tales from the Crypt Bordello of Blood because it takes place in a bordello. You got Knock Knock, which is Keanu Reeves and a bunch of like teenage girls like are stranded and knock on his door and they seduce him, and then you find out what happens. A TV series you could definitely take a look at is True Blood. Now that's strictly like vampires and sex and all that, and also Maniac, which is it's a remake. You could check out the remake, which was okay, but the original with Joe Spinell from 1980, Maniac, that one is like very dark and gritty in the era of exploitation films. And they both have to do with like this sick man or sick guy who has like fantasies about his mother or has like mommy issues, and he's like killing prostitutes and stuff like that. So, check out some of these erotic horror films to give you some idea of what you could write about. Now we get to ESP horror subgenre. Now this subgenre has a hero or villain with mental powers that can move objects with their mind or create chaos with supernatural or magical powers using only their mind. Can also communicate with others with the same mental powers. So some movies to take a look at, obviously Firestarter with the young Drew Barrymore, Carrie. There's like tons of remakes, but the original is the best. I believe you got Friday the 13th Part 4, or is it 5? Maybe 4, where you had the main character girl. She has like mental powers. She has, can move objects with her mind, and she's fighting Jason with her mental powers. So let me know in the comments if it's Part 4, I forget, or is it Part 5, which one? So pop quiz, let me know. Also The Shining, which they could communicate telepathically with other people with the same powers. They can make people do horrible things. So those are some films you could check out to give you an idea, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Now let's look at found footage subgenre. Now, found footage is usually like a style of camera work, but so many of movies came out using that style that it just became a whole genre amongst itself. So it's a subgenre in which all of the substantial parts of the work is presented as if it were discovered film or video recordings. The events on screen are typically seen through the camera of one or more of the characters involved, all often accompanied by their real-time off-screen commentary. So some films to take a look at is The Blair Witch Project, which started it all, The Gallows, Cloverfield, and then Paranormal Activity, which was like a resurgence. You can check out all the sequels. There's also like Record, or there was another one with Art the Clown, All Hallows Eve, which is like a bunch of found footage stories put together, just like Record is, or Rec for short. So it's pretty much self-explanatory. There's tons of movies you could take a look at. Now we're going to talk about two subgenres. One that is, I heard about before, it's self-explanatory, mummies. But then another one which I never heard before, called golem horror. It's very specific and like small, I guess. So subgenre dubbed the first monster movie. So mummies or golem is ultimately the first monster movies ever made, based on the Jewish legend about a clay man created by a magically inclined rabbi. The 1915 version purportedly about an antique dealer who discovers a 4th century old golem and uses it as a personal servant has been lost, but it was so successful that it generated a comedy about an actor in a golem suit, The Golem and the Dancing Girl, made in 1917, and a prequel made in 1920, which is the only one of the 3 films to survive. You see, there's only 3 films. That's crazy. So, some movies to take a look at: The Mummy, the original Mummy with Boris Karloff, the remakes, even the remake now with Tom Cruise, which bombed. But the Golem films, there's only 3. So you got the Golem, you got the remake of a Golem, and then I just found out that they made another remake, 2018, also called The Golem. So I'm going to check out some of these films because I want to see what this is all about, because it sounds very interesting and it's a subgenre that I never heard before. That's pretty cool. Okay, I'm going to quickly touch on remakes because I mentioned these before, and even though there's tons of them, so this subgenre updated is basically updating past or older horror films with contemporary themes based on the current culture and trends. Mostly not as good as the original, but there are a few exceptions, filled with lots of callbacks, homages, shot-for-shot copies of the scenes with a slight twist or change. So, for example, you have It, which is, I didn't see it, but I heard it was really good. You got The Mummy with Tom Cruise, which bombed. I think the Brendan Fraser one was even better. You have the remake with Halloween, the Rob Zombie version, which was 50-50. Either you like the direction or you don't. You have Poltergeist, the remake, which was, I heard it was okay. But there's so many out there. They're usually made for the new generation. So you got like 80% made for the new generation, and then that 20% or even less, you have the callbacks, homages, shot-for-shot scenes for the older fans that had the original films, and then we can be like, oh wow, remember when that one scene from Halloween, like the original, when Michael Myers wore the sheet? Well, guess what? In the remake, he will also wears a sheet. Thanks for the callback, yay! But then, like 90% of the film is like a bastardization made for the current, the current generation, which I'm not going to get into it. There's a whole video I made about it. Check it out. But I guess I'll make a separate video, like explaining remakes and in the, the past and current generation and the differences of stuff like that. So, tons of remakes and reboots and reimaginings and prequels and sequels, and you could check out. And finally, we're going to finish off this series with weird horror subgenre. Now, this is a descriptive category in a genre which is comprised of nothing but weird and strange. Some tales really push that envelope, and the long-running magazine Weird Tales is often cited in this regard. So this is basically a subgenre dealing with strange stories or concepts of horror movies. So I'm sure there's tons of them out there that I never even heard of, but the ones that I could think of or come up with is the Ginger Dead Man. You got Puppets versus Demonic Toys. You got Beetlejuice, which was really strange. And I even put Evil Dead on the list because you're thinking like, wait a minute, well, that's not strange. If you ever saw the film, it is very strange. To me, like almost every scene has like weird like things going on. It gets stranger and stranger. So If you can think of some stranger, horror films, let me know in the comments. But that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the 8-part subgenre horror series. Please like and subscribe. Help me grow my channel. I'm going to either start a new series or do some horror reviews. I'm going to start live streaming. It's going to be a lot of fun. Halloween is coming up. So until next time, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much, guys, for sticking with me. See you guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like, share this video. Hit me up on Facebook and Twitter. Comment down below. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell. And also don't forget to check out my other videos. And until next time, remember my motto, where story comes first.